Good morning. Hello and welcome to the Profit Lab podcast. Hope you like the energetic music we play every time. I am your host, Marie Torossian. I am a CFO, an auditor, a certified public accountant, and a chartered global management accountant. I serve the entrepreneurial community and business owners through my CPA firm, Marie Torossian CPA, and through my management consulting company, the Profit Lab. The Profit Lab podcast serves to expand our mission to empower entrepreneurs by bringing their stories to the masses. We are thrilled to tell your story to inspire, empower, and uplift other entrepreneurs. So please check out our website, www.theprofitlab.biz/podcast. We launched the podcast on August 2nd, where I spoke about my entrepreneurial journey and I shared some of the valuable takeaways from my experience so far. So we plan to feature entrepreneurs from all walks of life to show every week. So if you want to be a guest on my show, please go ahead and send the request in at support@theprofitlab.biz. Today, September 27th, is our 9th episode, and we are live on Facebook at The Profit Lab Biz. We are also live on LinkedIn, Marie Torossian CPA CGMA, and on my YouTube channel, Marie Torossian CPA. Make sure to subscribe, follow, like, and share this content so that other entrepreneurs can be inspired and empowered. Today, my guest is Michael Verrett, founder of Verrett and Associates. He's a 25-year veteran in brand marketing business, and his hallmark is his ability to understand audience. Now he shows businesses how to talk about themselves to their audience. And with that, Michael, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here.
Marie, I am tickled silly to be here. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. How about you? It's been a while.
It has been a while. I think it's all the way back towards like December when we first started talking. Things have been, a journey, just like any entrepreneur. I'm sure they've got their ups and downs, but I've been enjoying every step of the way.
Yes. Entrepreneur journey is definitely a bumpy road. And one of the things I always, say when I'm talking or when I'm creating content is that, people talk about, having this 4-day weeks and all that stuff. I'm like, I don't know who's doing that, because there's no entrepreneur journey, especially the first 5 to 10 years that you're just having a 4-day week and you're just, having a 3-day weekend. I'm like, I actually work every single day at different capacity. And I'm sure that's how you feel too.
Well, maybe we're just not doing it right. Maybe it's a younger generation thing. Well, maybe it's a younger generation thing when they figured it out. Like, think about this. When I was a kid, if the video cassette recorder got unplugged or something and the time started flashing 12, every single time my parents would ask me, how do you do this? How do you do this? I'm like, how come you don't understand this? Maybe we just don't understand how they're thinking about it. And they figured out the right solution. We're just stuck in our ways and can't adapt is the problem.
Maybe that is. I feel like I'm a little bit of a, maybe a little bit of a workaholic too. But I feel like in the early stages, it does take a little bit more of a, the build out, right? It takes a lot of effort, time, and commitment to build out to what you want it to be, and then be able to plug in the people that can build it to the next level. And then you can kind of just stay on the oversight level. You can take those extra times. Just starting out, it's hard, right?
I think entrepreneurs put a timeline on themselves. Like, take the simple idea of burn rate and the ability for a business to stay in business to a certain amount of time. I think that's the kind of stuff that early on in the journey people are paying a lot of attention to. But I think to get to that 4 days a week requires having everything working the way that you saw it. Like, your vision is 4 days a week, but that doesn't mean that out of the gates it's 4 days a week necessarily. You kind of build to it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's the vision. It's where you want to get to. You're right. That's
Yeah.
absolutely it. So that's awesome. Awesome. Well, let's really start the podcast, should we? We want to get to know Mike Verrett.
Oh boy.
So I always start my questions, when I'm interviewing guests, is like, we really want to know Mike, the person, So Mike Verrett, who is Mike Verrett, the person, not just the business owner, just the person, your values, anything you want to tell us about you, the person.
I am 49 years old and realized at the age of 45 what some people will call it work-life balance. I
Uh
explain it as
huh.
work-life integration,
Yes.
how the two work together. Balance to me means you're always trying to find the right, fulcrum point,
Right. Right.
whereas something like how they work together is what I felt was always missing.
Sure.
My background is in marketing, advertising, and brand management, but really what I always was good at was communicating with people. Like that's
Hmm.
what I was. I could talk, I could write, and
Hmm.
I couldn't do numbers. I could never be a coder. Like that's not the
Right.
kind of person I was. But from a who is me perspective, I spend most of my days sitting in the cellar of a house that was built in 1850 in this chair talking to businesses. But my politics, religion, and everything else is my wife and two kids upstairs. And that's where we spend most of our time. So I
Yeah.
have a daughter who just started university her freshman year,
Awesome.
and a
Congrats.
son, thank you, excuse me, and a son who just started freshman year in high school. And
Amazing. Awesome.
in doing what I do now, sort of part of my entrepreneurial journey was that sort of point of realization that it's all work and I'm not myself when I'm at home.
Right.
Work is a role we all play. There's no business without show business, but it's not who we really are.
Right.
And I think I think where my outlook on things changed, and it was almost the quality of life, that integration of work and life, was
Right.
after I got out of the 25 years in the agency and corporate world, and I could take a breath and
Yes.
look back and think about, all right, I'm 45 now. What do I want to do that I can leverage what I'm good at, but I can do what I want? Like I can be happy across the board, not miserable at
Right.
work and try to put on a happy face at home, knowing I
Right.
have to go back there, for instance.
Right.
So a lot of that, my my hobbies range from bike riding to sneaker collecting. I have 150 pairs of sneakers, um, which is certainly a
Nice.
problem. Um, but what I love about what I've created for myself is it lets me be me and lets me do what
Right.
I'm good
Right.
at and think the way that I think. And I think that's been the biggest realization in the past 5 years for me is the integration of life and work that I could realize it's a grind. I work a lot doing what I do, but it just feels better.
Right. You had found that integration. That's a key point you said, because I feel like I had to go through that last year. So, or at least I started that journey last year where I was like, yeah, I had started a business, but I still was struggling between what I want to do, what I'm good at, and what I like to do, kind of still in between. And then finally, and still finding myself too, where, I still want to be a great mom, a great wife, two kids, and my kids are
Yeah.
very little. Actually, I have a very, very little kids. And you're right, you have to find that integration, not a balance, because then it's like giving up something over the other. You do want to find that integration. And I think I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well, I think of the idea of balance like a tightrope walker at the circus,
Right.
where they're using that pole to always stay on balance, but they're always twitching and moving to do it.
Right. It's
They're
not
not
comfortable.
Integration is sort of how two things work and live together.
Right.
That's what I realized I want to achieve, not this awkward balance of, okay, I got to go back to the office and then I got to come home and be dad or husband or friend or son.
Yes.
It was always just sort of like trying to change into somebody else, and that was
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood. Yeah. For me, it was. I actually went to a leadership training on a ranch in Austin, and that was
Mm,
where things kind of like realigned.
Yeah.
or a reset button was set for me where, the leadership coach at the time is like over there, and I still connect with her, and she's hopefully going to be on my podcast one of these days. I am excited. So, and that was a where things were like for me was that alignment, started, and the journey started. So it was great. It's just being you is very important because that's.
Yeah.
I feel it also builds your entrepreneurial confidence too, because you know what you know, and then when you're already integrating to yourself and projecting yourself the way you are, whether it's the dress, the style, whatever it is. Like when you said that you have 150 pairs of sneakers, I'm like, it's wow, but at the same time, like I get it. I know your style is very like down to earth. You like the cap. That's your style. That's even in your bio, your pictures, everything. So everywhere, that's your brand. That's who you are. So I get it. So which is what I'm trying to work on too. I've been wearing cowboy boots for the last, I don't know, year since I came back from Austin in the middle of
You haven't
Miami
taken
Heat,
them off.
for example. It's now part of my style. It's just because apparently it's part of me. So it just becomes who you are. It's part of your brand. It's just
Yeah.
and I have to say those boots have made a lot of conversations for me.
Good. As well they should. I look at everything as an opportunity to sort of a first impression handshake, but state what you stand, like kind of show what your brand is, right? And everything from my holding picture on Zoom, which is the same as my picture on LinkedIn and everywhere else, all the way down to what people see when I'm in front of this camera. I always have a dark top on. I have a hat with my logo on it. My logo's right here. The chair matches the logo. That's all done with intent.
Themes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like all of that is part of what people see and hear and take away becomes a point of consistency. And that's how I look at it.
That's amazing. That you just gave us really, really cool pointers. I've been changing my background a little bit, but this little thing here has been staying at least stable.
To get people to ask what it means too.
Yes, because it has been part of my transformation and journey as well. So
and you can imagine one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what does the butterfly mean? But the only reason they're asking is because it's right there. It's part of what they're always experiencing, and eventually they ask.
So what is it?
Perspective. So businesses, imagine caterpillars in the grass, just trying to find the tree to climb, the leaves to eat, to make a cocoon, to become a butterfly. If I already have the eyes on what that looks like, because I am a butterfly, I'm up in the air and you're stuck on the ground, I could see more clearly. And that's generally speaking, that perspective and clarity is what my business is built around.
Yes. I totally get it now. Yes. I love that. So you kind of already touched on some of how you got motivated to start your entrepreneurial journey. So what are some of the biggest impacts you've had, whether on that journey or throughout life, that has made you who you are as a person? Entrepreneur.
The way I would answer that is this. Over my 25 years, I was always working and I had a job somewhere, like whether it was a marketing firm or an ad agency or doing, promos and events for clients, or eventually even just TV advertising. All of that was what I did. Mm-hmm. And I was good at it. I was an account executive, like account service. And they're always looked at as passing notes back and forth between the client and creative. Show them this, tell us what the feedback is. But I could speak client, I could speak creative, I could speak media, I could speak production. If I were on set, I could fit right in. Reason being, I always understood my audience and how to communicate on their level. And that's what I didn't realize it for those 25 years, but that's what I was good at. Now, again, I couldn't see it. That's not how I was thinking about it. I just happened to be good at it. What occurred was I was hired by my client, Hasbro Toys in Rhode Island. I'm in Rhode Island. Hasbro Toys is in Rhode Island. So I went from this world of the ad agency where it's 5% matters of what Hasbro's doing. We're making kids' dreams come true with, Optimus Prime from Transformers and Iron Man and Star Wars. Like, kids see it as this fantasy world, okay? And that's what we needed to represent. Then they hired me. And now I'm exposed to the other 95%. And what I saw was, this is for 7 years I worked at Hasbro as an employee. What I saw was, it's highly political. What have you done for me lately? And a bunch of MBA grads who would climb over your corpse to move ahead in the corporate world. It was very type A, and getting to the top was sort of the attitude of it, combined with the complexities of running a Fortune 500 manufacturing company, because that's ultimately what it was. They made products.
Right.
It was a world I didn't understand, and I didn't like it. It just wasn't who I was. But I learned so much from the experience, right? Like everything I had to do, it was like a practical application for how to get your business degree. I took a lot away, but my time there was just rife with being unhappy, and just felt like I was not in the right place. I'm looking at everybody around me using a different language than I even understood. Acronyms, business terms that I wasn't familiar with yet. And initially I was just on global brand marketing for Transformers. So that was what I was good at, what I understood. But again, that political and sort of, get ahead culture was there. Then they moved me on to the Jurassic World product line. And this is when we were a licensee of the filmmaker, and we were just making the dinosaurs, the plastic dinosaurs, in boxes to put on the shelf at Walmart. We didn't own the brand. We just made the toys.
Understood.
I did not like that at all. That was a sterile process. We could have been making toothbrushes or trash bin liners. It just didn't suit me at all, but I could see everybody else excelling in it. They moved me to Hasbro Games, and immediately realized that I was not good at making the products, but I was really good at going out and talking to our stakeholders about them. So a stakeholder being the regional marketing and sales teams, all the way to the buyers of the products at a retailer. I was the person they put in front of them. Reason being, I could understand who they are and how they think, almost their personality type, and cater my delivery, like the tone and attitude, to that person. And to give you an example of that, they'd send me to the European Toy Fair. So it's a industry show, invite only into the different spaces. It's not a fan show. And when people came to the Hasbro Games area in our whole statement, I was who they talked to and who brought them through. So every country in Europe would be there with their salesperson, and they'd bring their buyer through. In 2 to 3 second increments, I'd have to recognize the salesperson, remember what country they're from, and have a basic understanding of that culturally. The United Arab Emirates is very different from Italy, is very different from Poland. I'm absorbing all of that. Because the way I see it is, if they're looking at me with a blank stare, I didn't do my job. So I need to communicate on their level. So that's what I did for 3 years. They'd send me to places like Hong Kong and Mumbai and Brazil to meet with buyers and teams and talk about Hasbro Games. That was, excuse me, that was about 35% of my job. The other 65%, I was still in the office and still not happy. In fall of 18 was like the seminal, pivotal catalyst, let's call it, the moment was getting let go. There was a workforce reduction because the stock was down. They let 10% go. And what they do is bring in younger, cheaper talent to backfill. I'd seen it happen a bunch of times, and I happened to be the first person called in games. I hugged the VP. She's like, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "This, you don't understand." It's like I got released from prison early. That's how I felt. But the magic of it all was the fact that they said, "We're going to give you severance with it." Everybody got a severance package.
Of course.
And I could breathe for the first time in 25 years. I could actually think about that 25 years for the first time in 25 years. And in that working part, I got married. I had a kid. We bought a condo. We moved. We had another kid. Life happened, right?
Wow.
Now I can just stop and look at it all, almost like an out-of-body experience. And that's when it occurred to me that the red thread through my career, I've done everything on the marketing spectrum, from concepting a new item to writing and acting in the TV commercial. I had to do it. But
amazing.
The one commonality or red thread was my understanding of an audience and how to connect with them, communicate in the order of information they need to hear to get them to act is what I was good at. So that's when I decided, instead of going and getting another job at a brand or an agency, I was going to try something on my own. Do I have regrets on how I started it up? Of course. I didn't know what I was doing, but this general idea of showing companies 100% of what's important to the company, only 5% matters to the outside world, to their audience. It's exactly what I saw in my ad years, and exactly what I experienced when I worked at Hasbro was the 100%. But it clouds businesses. They think differently than a human being audience. They talk differently. They use words like synergize and ideate and KPI. That's not how humans think. And it's not how they process information. So what I focus on is how people process information. And it's very simple to understand. For 60,000 years, we have understood storytelling, a narrative. What happens? Then what happens? What happens next? Oh, what comes after that is how we think. That's
Staying
how
at
we
the edge of our
process
chairs,
information.
we want the next information, right? The storytelling, yes.
Yeah, and you could use an FAQ page for a well-written FAQ page for a website understands this, because it starts with the most general question and goes to the most specific question that the audience would have. Not alphabetical, not specific, general. It's because they're going to want to understand deeper and deeper with more specificity, more detail. That's how we think. And that's what's lost when it comes to businesses.
Wow, that's so impressive.
They think of everything. You know, the term SaaS. Are you familiar with the term SaaS?
Say that again?
Are you familiar with the term or the acronym SaaS? SaaS?
SaaS, yes.
Software as a service. Okay.
Yes.
The genesis of the four letters together, SaaS, is simply an abbreviation for email within the company building the software. So they don't have to type out software as a service. Imagine what happens when all of these companies are going out and on their website saying, we're a SaaS company. What happens if I don't know what SaaS means, but I know I need a piece of software or technology to make my life easier and make my business run better? I skip right over it, because the business is thinking that way doesn't mean I'm thinking that way. And that's the important difference. There's no business without show business. We're always playing a role. There's scripts, directors, producers, props. But people don't change the way they process information. We're human beings. It just works in one way. So what I do is effectively, I play the role of chief perspective officer for companies.
Chief perspective officer.
Yes.
I love
so
it.
Think of it as a position that every C-suite should have, but it's not an internal employee. It's not a stakeholder. It's someone on the outside whose job is to keep an eye on the audience, understand them, clarify how you're communicating with them, and get that communication to them the right way. And it all stems from one thing, one pitch, if you will. Your networking pitch. We'll use that as an example, like an elevator pitch.
Right.
What that represents to someone in networking is, I'm going to say what I do and meet people. But what you don't realize is that same message should be what's on your homepage, what your sales presentation is based on, and your LinkedIn profile. Because it's based on an order of information, a connection point. Going through that order, like imagine reading the pages of a book in the right order. People will understand it better, and getting them to act on their terms. It's all about the perception of the audience. What they see and what they cling on to is you have to be one of three things: first, best, or different. That's what it boils down to. That's the first time I saw that. That's the best pizza I've ever had. First and best, tough to come by, but people remember them. Different is the other one that every business can do. And it's simply understanding that it's not different, like dress like a clown and hold a sign on the street.
Right.
It's different in the audience's mind as they're searching for your service. So what that looks like,
stands out.
Let's say you need a plumber. And you go on Google and search for a plumber. The first three results you look at say, yep, we're a plumber, phone number. We're a plumber, call us now. The fourth one says, water's on the floor, don't call us. Click this red button and we will be there in 10 minutes. That plumber is speaking to why you need a plumber. Why you came home There's water on the floor. You drop everything. Water doesn't wait. If it's a light
Right.
bulb or a shingle, do it on Saturday, but not water.
Right.
If there's
Exactly.
water outside of
Exactly.
that system, you panic.
Of
This
course.
plumber knows that and is speaking to your motivation and looks totally different to you when you're searching.
Absolutely. It's grabbing attention right away. Right away.
Right away. That connection point is imperative.
Yeah.
So that's what I focus on, is that how you connect, how you direct them through the information the right way, and how you project the right tone or attitude doing it are what my work focuses on.
That's amazing. You've given us so many golden nuggets. So many. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I know you've given us a little bit more of how you got impacted from the being let go from a corporate world and then transitioning into your work. So are you working with all kinds of businesses, or does it do you work with specific executives in specific industries, or is it just general?
I wouldn't say it's general, but I would say that the net can be cast pretty wide. And here's why. What I do is foundational for businesses. It's if they've got a reservoir and a dam and the outflow coming from the dam, my job is to build the dam. And that becomes the foundation for how they communicate what their message is. Think of it that way.
Right.
Once that's established, what they're seeing is a hell of a lot more clarity, but what they're experiencing is more people paying attention. And the reason is simple. If you hear the same thing all the time and then all of a sudden you hear something different, your ears perk up, no matter what you're doing. And most audiences get into this idea of, let's say I'm in public relations and I come into a networking call that you're on and I say, hi, I'm Mike and I own a PR firm. And I start talking about what we do. All you're going to remember is Mike PR firm. That's all. That's how our minds work. We hold on to little pieces. But more importantly, you might know a Jim PR firm, a Joe PR firm, and a Susie PR firm. I'm saying the exact same thing as them. I have a PR firm. But the dynamic changes considerably if I say, I make news when it matters. Because now the people that I'm talking to are like, what do you mean you make news when it matters? Am I a journalist? Am I in PR? I could be an unruly celebrity in the gossip column, but
they want to hear more.
Exactly. And all I'm trying to do is get them to say, tell me more in some way. Like, what do you mean? That's interesting.
Yes.
Explain yourself. So I can relate to my audience, and their challenge is the next thing I want to focus on. Because if I can explain the idea that businesses can't write their own news, imagine trying to write about yourself in flowing terms. You can be critical,
that's very difficult.
It's hard, and you need somebody to see it from the outside. Businesses are no different. They get writer's block when they're trying to find the words to write their own news. So how do you help them? Now I'm telling them my solution in a sentence. I find the words they can't to make sure their news has the impact it has to have for their business. Now, if the first three things on my website say, make news when it matters, you've got writer's block, we'll find the words. They're going to keep scrolling. Because I've got their attention, aligned to their challenge, and showed them a solution, not all my services. I showed them.
You don't want to confuse them with so many things. Yes, exactly.
And I've related to them on their terms. So from there, if I can establish a process for how we work together, like 3 steps, discover your news, design it, and deploy it. They see what it looks like to work with me from beginning to end. Then when I introduce my services, it's in the context of those 3 steps in the process, and they see services as what's going to happen in the process.
Mm-hmm.
I show them the benefits of working with me. I show them case studies or testimonials to validate it. And I give them that call. What do you want me to do next? Like, here's my card or scheduled time or whatever. I have built that based on how people are asking questions and the order they would ask them. So my process is based on this, one-sided. So what do you do? What? That's interesting. What do you mean by that? Oh, okay. So how do you help them? Well, how does that work? And what do they get in that process? How are they better off? Can you prove it works? Have you done this with anybody else? You know what? Yeah, I'll take your card. Let's schedule a meeting. That's what anybody would do to extract that information. But the business thinks it's services first. The business thinks it's our mission first. If someone wrote a book and they're not an author, but they wrote a book about what they do, for instance, they've got that first on their website because that's a passion that they want to share.
Right.
But unless you're
Yes.
Danielle Steele or Stephen King, I don't care.
Right.
I need
Right.
to understand what you do and how you can help me. The book is actually a validation of that or a call to action. That's
Right.
not how the business is thinking. My job is to think that way for them.
That makes total sense. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, before I ask you the next set of questions, I just want to make sure that I read some of the information we have there for our listeners because they won't be able to see the banners down there. So guys, you can schedule your complimentary 30-minute consultation with Michael by going to his Calendly calendar. So it's
Or
Calendly.
actually, Marie, you can just go to my website and click the green button. That's even easier.
Oh, okay. So it's on the website too. Okay, so then
Yes.
I'll just say the website, www.verrettandassociates.com. So I'm going to spell one by one, VERRETTANDASSOCIATES.com. So verrettandassociates.com. And then you'll be able to schedule your complimentary 30-minute session with Michael. You should do this. I recommend you do this ASAP. So with that, all right. So a couple more questions before we kind of like wrap up. And then, so during your entrepreneurial, build out the past 5 years and since 2018, so what are some of the challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
The first challenge was, I'll speak to a business challenge and then an environmental challenge. That
Sure.
But the business challenge,
any challenge for sure.
The business challenge was trying to figure out what works for me, my business. And what I realized was I was very susceptible to the you should try this, you should do this, you should do that.
Oh, too many.
A lot of inputs, right? So all of a sudden I find myself, I need to post, I need to send emails, I need to do this, I need to do that, and all these different things, and I'm not doing any of them well. And moreover, it was reactionary. It was what other people were telling me to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you a great example of this and how I tried to use it to formulate what I do. I landed on 3 things that I focus on. But the whole realism came into, okay, I'm going to use LinkedIn for content and communication. It's a 24/7 networking event. And if I can provide compelling content of value and I could meet people and create discussions, I could get them on camera, my free 30-minute advisory, that's
right.
what I wanted to set out to do. Second was networking. If I could stand out in a group of 40 people remember 3 people from networking groups. They don't remember all of them.
Right. You can't remember
3.
everybody. Of course not.
Right. If I could be one of those 3, I get another opportunity to get somebody on camera.
Absolutely.
And I know that when I'm talking to someone, I can quickly give them insights about their business and their audience. And that sort of gets to a second call. So that was my mission. The third thing, and this was the last you should I cut out of it, was you should start a live stream or a podcast.
Yes.
And this was in August of 2020. So everybody was trying to figure out what to do to replace the fact that you can't go places, right? It was it was COVID.
Yes.
And I'm like, you know what? So-and-so, I can't remember who brought it up that time, but I had heard it a few times. I'm going to do it. And I ordered a microphone and I started planning everything. And then I had cancel on the order for the microphone because I realized 2 things important. One, this is self-realization. I'm not going to stick with it. I am going to drive myself nuts with the production of it. But 2, I have to generate an audience for myself in that capacity.
Yes.
But what if I could just be a guest on other people's programs? I'm meeting new audiences every time.
Yes.
And I don't have the production responsibilities, but it achieves my goal of amplifying what I do to new audiences.
Right.
So now I focus on LinkedIn, networking, however that comes together.
Absolutely.
And that appearances part, those 3 things work together to help me do what I do.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right.
If I try to add more than 3, though, that's where it gets messy.
Right. It is a juggling act there, and you're right. All of us go through the struggles in the beginning. I know when I was trying to do things on between LinkedIn, Facebook, and this was 2018, 2019. I still didn't know anything about any marketing, social media, or anything else. Just I knew I had to post something, I was just posting random stuff. It didn't speak to nobody because I didn't know what to say, really. I just
Right.
knew I had to be online. I just had to show my face somewhere.
It's like a to-do list item. I
It's a
have to
to-do list.
post. I have to do this.
Yeah,
I have to have a
I have to
website.
create.
Yeah.
I have to create. And I didn't even know what to do, what to create, but I just, created something and I posted something and I'm like, oh, nothing's happening, but yeah, because I didn't realize that, like you said, I'm not talking to really anybody because I didn't know my audience. I don't know who I'm selling to.
Yeah.
And it was very, very difficult. And then you're right. And then everybody's trying to tell you, no, you should do this, you should do automations, you should do it. And then I know at some point you have to add that, but then you get all overwhelmed about when. It's about when to add that next level and when to add the next level. And
Right.
it gets so crazy. So yeah, you're right. It's good that the sooner you catch up on, okay, I'm going to do these 3 things the next 90 days. Once these are established, I'm going to add the next 3 things the following 90 days. Then you're
Yeah.
planning those implementations in a well, systematic way. Yeah.
Well, it's trying to form consistency in what you do.
Yeah.
And if you have to do 6 different things all the time, it's
Yes.
hard to find that consistency. That's the
Yes.
reality of it. If I could focus on LinkedIn, networking, and guest appearances, and I
Right.
do those 3 things well, I'm going to get further than if I try to do the next hottest thing that somebody told me to do.
Right. Right.
The
You're
other influence was COVID and the pandemic when it hit. My business was actually built around, it was more presentation training, okay,
Right.
skills
Right.
training. And it was workshop style. So I was going to business. I live in Rhode Island. I was going to businesses in Boston, Providence, and New York where I could go to and be in office.
Right.
And when the pandemic hit, I mean, it was off to a great start. This was the first year and few months of my endeavor. I had a $60,000 contract lined up for 8 days at a company down in
Amazing. Yeah.
Atlanta on April 8th, and everything got put on hold.
Wow.
What I noticed was Zoom wasn't a thing yet when it first hit.
Right.
Zoom was
No,
just
it
a
wasn't.
conference call tool, right?
Right.
And what people saw in what I did was it had to be done in person. I know damn well I could do the same thing on Zoom
course.
than in person, but they saw it as it had to be in person. If you fast forward 6 months, it would have been a different conversation because everybody's at home and on Zoom.
Right.
But at the time, I needed to pivot or change or adjust what I was doing because that opportunity was now not an opportunity.
Right.
So that's where I said, wait a second, I'm talking about communicating to an audience in front of you, but what if they're not in front of you? It's the same principles that apply. Like public speaking obviously brings out a lot of fear in people, and that's a psychological thing that we all deal with. But the message they're conveying to that audience should be able to be conveyed in a pitch or in an email or on a website or in a sales presentation just as effectively. So I embarked on creating what I call my elevator structure for creating a message. And this was sort of okay, now I've got what I need as a tool and as a product that I can introduce to people. And before it was just straight consulting. What do you have? And let's mold it into something. Now I actually had a process, and it's 8 floors of the elevator. Those questions that I told you, I put it into this format where it's like a conversation on an elevator. And I started using that with my clients as the guidepost where you go, if it's a workbook form all the way to working one-to-one, it goes through how to construct your message based on that theory. And all the theory is like those questions are asked. How do people need to understand it? How do you get their attention and go in the right order? And think of it like reading a book to a bunch of 5-year-olds on the reading rug. You need to read. You can't start on page 5, even if you know what's on it. They need to understand pages 1 through 4. You turn the book around because they're 5. But the whole reason you're doing it is so you can see the audience say, yeah, we all see the cow jumping over the moon on page 3. So you could go to the page with the dish running away with the spoon. If any of those kids are looking at you and don't get it, you're staying on that page until all of them get it.
Right.
And that's how to think about what the audience sees versus what a business sees. So my elevator structure became the starting point, the crux of everything that I do. And I turned that into a product. I work with companies like coaches and consultants, so people just like me for the most part, all the way up to mainly, small businesses and startups, but on a growth trajectory, who are trying to pull all this together. And imagine a technology company that builds that software as a service. They think in ones and zeros.
Right.
They don't think the way the audience is going to think in terms of a narrative. So translating it to the outside world becomes even harder. But every business has to be able to do it, because the truth is, every business starts with one question: what problem do I solve for my customer?
Absolutely.
Then they build it internally in a vacuum. Then they have the solution or service or product, and the first thing they want to come out is say, yep, we've got the solution to your problem. But everybody's doing that. It's not about research and watching trend searching and hot zones and like hotspots on search. It's about logic and human nature and common sense. That's what goes out the window when businesses are trying to figure out how to communicate. And that's where I come in. Think of it as I'll leave you with this analogy. Let's go back to an author like Stephen King, writes that 400-page next bestseller. Now it comes time to write the 3 paragraphs that go on the inside flap and on Amazon that sell the book, the blurb. And he can't do it. He can't do it because he knows everything in those 400 pages: emotional state, air temperature, you name it.
It's hard to be objective.
He can't get to the 3 paragraphs that are going to make sense to the people who haven't read the book and get them excited about it. So all he does is gives the book to someone else to read, and they write the blurb. And even the way they write it is structured like, Stephen King's got a new book out. Wait till you read it. It's about this. The ending is going to blow you away. Buy it now. That's like a fan writing about a movie.
Right.
That's an example of the kind of perspective that's needed for the business world and what I aim to provide.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Awesome. I love it. This has been such great information, and absolutely, you're right. I mean, these are stuff that I had to learn slowly and little bits and pieces over time. And then I still am learning from you so much. And this has been such a great interview. I've learned so much from you today, even though I had a call with you before in December.
Well, even the things that I say now are probably different than they were in
probably,
December,
Marie. I've learned a lot.
Reason being, that's part of the entrepreneur stuff, trying to start something on your own. Here's the truth: is you know what you know and nothing else. And if I come into it saying I know an audience, that doesn't mean I know how to run and market and sell a business necessarily. We all need outside perspective once in a while, just because our knowledge base and what we can do to help is actually repressed and constricted by all the stuff we don't know how to do and we have to figure out. And that is, as far as I can tell, for an entrepreneur, that's the hardest part, is how do you gain the knowledge and apply it right to your business. And I feel like since the pandemic started, especially, my business has really changed considerably how I do it and what I do. The principles the fundamentals of it are identical, but it's changed so much, seeing what the market dictates and what people really need, and even honing it, like calling it a pitch instead of a message. A pitch, everybody thinks of. A message is too sort of ethereal, almost like, what's my message? What do I stand for? But the second I start calling it a pitch, like an elevator pitch, people know exactly what that is, and they're grounded in reality at that point. Little things like that change over time because we're always testing and learning in this business.
Absolutely. It's a learning journey. That's for sure. Awesome, Michael. Thank you. I appreciate so much you being here and telling your story with us. Is there any other last minute message you'd like to leave our audience with?
The only thing I can think of is going back to that idea of first, best, and different, or different, I should say. Those are the things that we're all excelling for because we know that that's what we would notice in the real world. And to rest on our laurels and hope that our services or a feature of our services is going to stand out isn't enough. It's about understanding how to be different. What is that catalyst for different that you build everything from? And that's where to start when you're trying to clarify how you even talk about what you do to the outside world. It's understanding their point of view and their perspective. Get their attention, direct them through the information in the right order, the book, the way it's written, and get them to act on their terms.
Awesome. I love it. Great, Michael. Congratulations for having your business for the past 5 years and many, many, many more, and for
Here's to it.
delivering excellent service to your clients. Please stick around. Before we close, we'll wrap up as well. And to all our viewers and our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today. Please remember to subscribe, follow, like, and share our content here on any of the platforms that you are watching or listening to us on. Let's empower each other through our experiences. Until the next episode, have a wonderful and blessed rest of your week.